So today we're going to discuss or review the game of Destiny 2. It's been currently over 1 year since I started playing and around about 1,000 hours of playtime. I started on the 6th of the 10th, 2021, according to the achievement tracker, and I have 1,047 hours of game time as of recording this video. Today we're going to discuss the overall experience I've had with Destiny 2. We're going to discuss certain aspects of the game in terms of the amount of content that's available for people, the onboarding experience for new players, improvements I think they should make, and also my recommendation on whether it's a good game or not. This is going to be about as full a review as I'm going to get for these sorts of things, so let's see how it goes. The game as a whole is a good game. Like any major game these days, it has its issues, some of which get resolved, others of which are still there months after being identified. This current expansion for Destiny has been widely received as one of the best from Bungie in a while. It introduces new difficulty options as the main story quest, which made it challenging but not overly burdensome for the most part. The season's been pretty entertaining overall, with a new dungeon or a new raid added with each new season, and we're going to discuss more on the variety of gameplay later, so we'll discuss that later. But the raids and dungeons themselves have actually been pretty entertaining, to be honest with you. They've been fun, they've been challenging. So just so you're aware of the perspective I'm coming from though, I'm not a hardcore player. So when I say I enjoy these, that's largely because I don't spam runs repeatedly until I get everything I want from them. I do a couple of raids a week and a couple of runs of the dungeon a week. Nothing onerous, maybe 6 to 8 hours of actual endgame content each week, whilst also trying to complete any seals, weekly objectives, etc, etc. This is the general crap you do in a game. Overall, I actually enjoyed the game though, despite its downsides. That brings me nicely onto the amount of content available and what there is to do in the game as a whole. We have several modes in the game at the moment, which we're going to go into now in a little bit more detail. We've got Crucible, which is the PvP matches, both 6v3, 3v3, and I think there is some free-for-all modes in there as well. We've got Gambit, which is a PvP, PvE hybrid game mode. It's his 4v4 mode. Vanguard, this is where the main PvE content in the game takes place. This is 3-man content with a wide variety of strikes, nightfalls, and grandmasters. Then on top of that, we've also got dungeon content. This is generally 3-man content as far as I'm aware. I don't think I've seen any higher than that. It's not match made, although it should in my opinion. Now being match made, this is where the game will automatically find you a group just when you click launch to go into the activity. Raids are 6-man content, and this is again not match made. And then we also have various other types of content in the game. We've got a lot of content in here though. We're lumping into this various section. This includes seasonal activities, story missions, random missions, and various older game modes which maybe aren't as relevant as they used to be. I will try to list these when we get to that section, but I will likely miss some, to be honest with you, as I haven't actually unlocked everything available in the game, even in the 1,000 hours I've been playing. As you can see from what I've just listed, there's actually quite a lot of content to keep you occupied. When I initially started this video, I actually thought that there isn't a lot of content to keep you going, because I tend to focus on the same stuff time after time. However, when I actually realized is that there's a pile of garbage, because once I started listing them all, there's actually quite a lot to do. I just don't tend to take part in most of it. So, onto the actual game modes in more detail. Firstly, we're going to take Crucible. As I said, this is the PvP section. There is a whole lot of different modes in here that change on a weekly basis. Some are good, some are okay, and some are absolutely horrendous. I look at you, Rift Mode, because I hate you. There are separate queues in here for groups and solo players, which while sometimes making the queue times a little bit longer, I think it's a good thing because it stops groups of players with voice comms ruffle stomping for solo players lumped together in matchmaking mode. The main one in here though is probably Trials of Osiris. This is the Destiny competitive PvP mode. You get extra good rewards for being excellent players and winning 7 matches in a row, or flawless as it's called. I've not dabbled in here much as it's pretty much for the super sweats, and whilst I would like some of the rewards from this area, it's not an easy thing to go flawless, and it requires me to increase my PvP ability, which, as you see from the gameplay in the background here, is severely lacking. It is not very good. Next mode is Gambit. This is the much hated mode of Destiny. It's a 4v4 PvE activity that requires you to complete an objective and summon an enemy at the end and kill it before the other team of 4 manages to do that themselves. However, there are points in the game where one player from each team can traverse into the other team's territory and kill them, hence the PvP section. Now again, this has group and solo queues. This one is much more enjoyable if you are in a group of people as the time passes by quickly, but I've literally relegated this to getting the seasonal objectives completed and not playing it as a regular basis because it's pretty much dire at times. It's not fun for the most part. For the following sections, which are PvE only, groups can be formed outside of the game for non-match made parts, and I will discuss this in slightly more detail in the improvements section. Now, Vanguard. This is a 3-man group PvE activity that's largely of different content called strikes, nightfalls, which are basically harder strikes, and Grandmaster nightfalls, which are significantly harder strikes. The end game for Vanguard content, and from what I have seen or heard, some of the hardest PvE content in the game. This is where you get extra special loot, which is only really available by doing Grandmaster nightfalls. It's hard content and rewards you for doing it with better rolls on weapons. Now, some of this is match made, meaning that you can actually queue into it solo, but some of it's not. Now, as the difficulty increases, you can't find a group for it in the game. You have to go to an external website. It's hosted by Bungie. You have to log in and go through it that way to find a group. Now, personally, I think that's rubbish. There's no need to not allow this to be in the game, and I don't understand why certain modes of it, maybe for the hardest content, can't be match made. So everything up to Grandmaster Nightfall, in my opinion, should be match made, and then maybe Grandmaster Nightfall not be match made. But again, I'm digressing here. We're going to discuss that in the improvement section. Dungeons. This again is 3-man content from my experience and is not match made. 2 versions of this exist, normal and master. It's longer and more difficult than a basic strike, and there are a few dungeons in the game to do from the current and previous expansions, and most of them are not particularly difficult if you put effort in. Raids. Now, these are 6-man content and they're not match made. Again, there are 2 modes of this available, normal and eventually master is released. There are quite a few raids in the current sandbox of Destiny, and they all represent their own unique challenges to groups. Most are still largely mechanics based, and as such still provide a moderate challenge to players who are new to the game while they get used to it. The last section of content to do in the game is the various section. Now, this has a whole bunch of different things to do. There are missions in each section or planet of the Destiny universe. There's a ton of stuff to do there. You get nightmare hunts on the moon. There's a mode in Europa I haven't actually unlocked yet. I'm not entirely sure how to unlock it, which is something that Destiny really needs to sort out. It's got replayable weekly story missions from the current expansion on there. We've got seasonal activities like Ketchcrass, Expedition, 7 missions for the Leviathan Castellum section. It's got lost sectors and public events. It's got achievements and triumphs to work towards, seals to unlock, emblems to unlock, ships and armor and weapons to grind. Well, that's actually not the most fun thing to do. However, it is still something to do if you like to torture yourself. So overall, there is a lot of content in Destiny 2 to keep new players occupied, and older players, if they get bored of doing stuff, there is past stuff they can do. Although once you've done that, like any game, there's not a lot to do. But that's generally the people who complain about not having a lot to do are people who've played this game since release and have done pretty much everything as they want to do it. Now we get on to the onboarding experience. We're not going to go into this too much detail because, going to be honest with you, this section will require a video all of its own because it's bad at best and it's horrific at worst. At the moment, the new player scenario introductory tutorial quest is basic, it's not well done. The screens are congested and confusing for people. There's so many different materials, currencies thrown and thrust at you and placed on the new player that it's extremely overwhelming. Due to the content vaulting Bungie has done to try and improve the player's experience, the story is fragmented, and new players who do certain activities are greeted by characters who are actually dead in the game, and you know they're dead before you even go into that activity. But then you get into the activity and you see them, speak to them, or hear them, or interact with them, and you're like, what the actual? Now, all of these issues, in my opinion, are the biggest cause of people not sticking around in the game in Destiny. Had I not had people helping me when I first started with all the different things, telling me where to go, where to get things, I would have been so confused, I honestly would have stopped. From everything I've seen online, people just get overwhelmed and don't know what they're doing. It's not a fun experience to start playing Destiny 2. Now, improvements. What improvements can we make to make the game better? Well, let's do a little list. Firstly, they need to improve the new player experience. And this is a big one, because if you can't get new players to stay long enough to love the game, it will die eventually. Gamers can be a transitory breed, and there will always be those who move along from one game to the next and never stick with one long enough. However, most gamers have a line, I'll call it an imaginary line, that if you get them to stay beyond that, then they will stay for a very long time. If you can play that long enough to actually form social bonds with people in guilds, clans, etc., you're going to stay in that game a whole lot longer. So you need to have a decent onboarding experience to allow people to do that, so they can form ties to a game so that they will stay playing it longer. Destiny doesn't do that very well. Secondly, now I didn't go into it too much above as it generally doesn't bother me, but Destiny can be grindy and repetitive. Now, while I don't find this an issue because I'm a filthy casual and I'm proud to be a filthy casual, for the players who like to be at the cutting edge of content, it is grindy and far too reliant on RNG. For the grindy nature, I'm not sure how this can be solved. Every game is repetitive and grindy after years of playing it. Even the most fun games are. However, developers should and need to be innovative with the game design to try and stop this. Some ideas will be excellent, whilst others will be complete potatoes. And we all know a game that's introduced a great new feature, but it's absolutely horrific. I name no names. RNG, however, is a bad thing. Whilst an element of RNG should exist in a game, the weapons that you can craft in this game from raids, dungeons, and seasonal content should all have a failsafe to allow you to get them eventually. The newest expansion introduced weapon crafting. However, at the moment you need to get so many red borders to craft the weapons with the specific role you want that it is grindy. The raids all have backups to get them eventually, as do the seasonal weapons, but the craftable weapons from the current dungeon have absolutely no backup. The RNG is so bad that I haven't seen one red border of one of the weapons in there at all. In fact, that weapon has only dropped 3 times total in all the runs I have done. It's horrendous. Bungie introduced a cool, in my opinion, feature, but seemed to go out of the way to slow down players in getting the weapons to craft and use them. The fact that they're slowing down players in getting the weapons to craft and use them on a feature, that the flagship feature that they introduced with an expansion, seems contradictory and cannibalistic to the nature of the game. I don't understand it. It needs to be fixed. Match-made activities. We said we'd talk about this. Some activities are only able to be match-made in-game up to a certain level of difficulty. And I don't understand why. Yeah, the activities require more skill, but Bungie hosts a website that allows you to create a group there and then invite the player to the group in-game. There's no mention of this external site at all in the game, and I only found out about it after some people mentioned it and I went and googled it. If it can be done out of the game, surely it could code it into the game interface. They might have their reasons for doing this. I would be interested to know why. Now, another external experience that we can talk about is a site called Destiny Item Manager, or DIM for short. This uses the Destiny API to analyze and look at everything you have in the game stores, in your vaults, etc., and bags. There's no bags, but essentially they're bags for anyone who plays another game. It also allows you to see what activities you've completed, track achievements, etc., etc. But why would I go to an external website to manage internal stuff? This is run as third party and isn't officially supported by Bungie as far as I'm aware. I do get why they allow us, because basically it's free labor for them. There's a user interface issue that is now solved and maintained by an external party at no cost to Bungie, but again, there's no internal reference to this made in the game because it's not supported, or even if it was supported it probably wouldn't be mentioned, and the internal storage manager in the game is horrific. If you don't use DIM, then quite frankly, you're making the experience in Destiny 2 worse. Again, something that Bungie should improve upon. Bug fixing in Destiny. Now, this isn't limited to Bungie, and I do feel bad leveling this against Bungie, as Blizzard, to be honest, you were horrific at fixing bugs in quests. There are some of them that are still broken over a decade after I completed them the first time. However, when Bungie charge for a specific season pass that includes game content, then they need to be fixed quicker. For example, the bells in Duality, anyone? A random death when a bell is rung for someone is stupid, especially when that dungeon is tied behind a £10 pass to allow you to play the thing, and then it randomly kills you while you're playing it. Maybe that's actually part of the reason. Maybe Bungie are just trying to basically make you play the content and engage with it for longer. Who knows? Hopefully not, but these things need to be fixed and should be fixed, and it's not like they're intermittently happening. They happen quite a lot. In summary, do I actually recommend the game? 100% yes, I do. There's plenty to do for the new player, maybe a little bit too much to do and can be a little bit overwhelming, but once you get past the jarring new player experience, it's a fun game, and if you can find a decent community to play with, then it's even more fun. Everyone loves the banter. Bungie, however, do need to sort out a whole bunch of things in the game, but the base game and some of the content is 100% free. There are several raids which are free for all players to run. There are other activities that are completely free also. So you can try a large portion of the game completely free just to see if you like the feel, the style, and the general idea of the game. What I urge people to do is to maybe look past the initial problems with the tutorial or lack thereof. I'm glad I did. There are plenty of guides on YouTube on what to do and things like this, and the external experience for Destiny is a whole lot better than the internal experience for Destiny. I can understand why people don't overlook that, because they shouldn't have to go external. Everything should be made easy to access and easy to understand in the game itself. Now, I have heard, to be fair, that they are looking to improve this with the new expansion, which is released next year, Lightfall. We shall have to see how that actually goes for them and whether they actually do manage to improve this. What I plan to do is another video discussing the new player experience in more detail. I'm going to point out where I think they need to improve by starting a brand new account and seeing where it goes from that, because it's been a while since I was a new player, and then discuss where I think they need to improve, and then overhaul that they're doing in the new expansion and see how it compares. Now, if you want to put your points forward on what you like and what you think needs to be improved, then let me know in the comment section below the video. And if you enjoyed this, that's fine. I don't need you to like or subscribe. If you wish to, that would be fantastic, but all I would like you to do is enjoy watching the video. So thank you very much, people. We'll see you in the next one. Toodle.